What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with some players that we are smashing, players we are hammering the draft button on from rounds 1 to 3. To us, these are the best values in these rounds. This week, we're going to be going over our best values rounds 1 to 3, guys that we're fading round 1 to 3. Then we're going to do 4 to 6 for players that we're drafting and players that we're fading as well. So that's what's on deck for this week. If you guys enjoy this video at any point, as always, you know what to do. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Comment any of your thoughts down below. Who is your biggest value in rounds 1 to 3 of drafts? But with that being said, Danny, how you doing?
Doing well, doing well. And yeah, these videos last year really popped off. You guys enjoyed this strategy, talking about, the archetypes of players that we're targeting and fading in these early rounds. We had to bring it back out. And for these early rounds, we kind of mention it all the time. A lot of people will say you can't win your fantasy league, but you can definitely lose them in your early rounds. Well, I'll tell you right now, if you attack the early rounds correctly, you can absolutely win your fantasy leagues in the first few rounds, getting some of those highest exposures to those players that win you weeks in the playoffs, that win you weeks in terms of their overall point accrual. You have to hit on these picks. And some of these players we're going to be talking about today gives you a ceiling to not only beat their ADP, but be some of the league winners by season's end.
Yeah, and I think if you guys went back, if you have the ability to look back at your draft board from last year, you'll notice that most of the playoff teams probably had a couple big hits in the first 5 rounds of their draft. It wasn't necessarily the guy that drafted all the late round gems and, made the playoffs or won the championship that way. It was usually just the guys that didn't miss on their early picks.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at it last year, if you ended up your first and second round with, Jonathan Taylor and Austin Eckler, and then on the third, fourth round turn, you got Cooper Kupp, there's a good chance you probably won your championship.
Yeah, exactly. So before we get into it, as always, got to hit the intro. All right, so round 1. Obviously, there's not a ton of value to be had in round 1. Most of these players have good outlooks. That's why they're going in the first round. But we do have some guys that we think are a little bit misappropriated. You guys can see the ADP on the screen there. It's a combination of underdog and, home league ADPs with, CBS, FFPC, and, Yahoo and all that kind of stuff. So we're using multi-site ADP for this one because this is more of we need the most accurate home league ADP possible for this one because we want to make sure that we're getting the best value. Who do you have as your biggest value in round 1?
This one's very simple, and his ADP in terms of aggregate has kind of got pushed down, as you kind of mentioned. In more home leagues, we see an RB thirst where players in their first round feel like, well, I can't fall behind the 8 ball. I need to get my running back. I need to get my running back. I need to get my running back because of that false sense that, oh, this position is so scarce that if I miss out now, I'm going to be at a disadvantage. Well, that's causing a guy like Jamar Chase, who has a great chance to potentially enter that wide receiver 1 overall range, falling to the 8th pick in ADP. And this one is very simple. I don't really have to elaborate too much, but I'm assuming, as I kind of said, this is pushed down due to that home league ADP. Let's talk about the situation. Let's talk about the player himself. Jamar Chase is a 22-year-old ascending superstar talent at the wide receiver position, tethered to one of the top 5 to 10 offenses in the NFL, with Joe Burrow slinging him the rock. The main concern that a lot of people have that may cause his ADP to fall in some of your drafts is due to the fact that he only had a 23.7% target share last year in comparison to some of the alpha wide receivers, Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp. Those guys were more so in the 29+% range. However, as we kind of see from Justin Jefferson year 1 to 2, in terms of comparable target share, we could see that case be for Jamar Chase. I mean, we're talking about a similarly talented player, the player that just broke Justin Jefferson's rookie receiving yard record. And not to mention, Chase is one of the most insanely efficient receivers in the NFL. So if he goes from that 23.7% target share and he resides, in that 26 to 27%, which is absolutely in the range of outcomes, probably should be the expectation. We also saw this Bengals passing offense down the stretch last year. In the first 4 weeks of the season, they were throwing the ball 26.75 times per game at a 54% neutral game script passing rate. We saw that number week 5 on jump to 34.5 passing attempts per game and a 60% neutral game script passing rate. So we saw an ascending passing offense in terms of volume. We know this offense in terms of insulation, in terms of quarterback play, is going to be one of the best in the league. And now we're betting on a 22-year-old year 1 to 2 production jump for Jamar Chase. I think, as I kind of said, wide receiver 1 is in the range of outcomes, and getting him at 8th overall behind like Dalvin Cook and, his teammate and Joe Mixon on some sites just should not be the case.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just common sense with Jamar Chase. To me, I'm a little shocked that he's not a consensus top 5 pick because, I mean, even the more casual players usually fall for guys like Jamar Chase, the guys that are big play creators, touchdown scorers, and it's usually the fantasy analysts saying the regression arguments and stuff. But for some reason, that's flipped with Jamar Chase, and the casual players are less likely to take Jamar Chase high, and the analysts are higher on Jamar Chase. So again, it's common sense. He plays in an elite offense with an elite quarterback. He has a great connection with him. He's a big play threat, touchdown threat. He's likely to see an increase in volume because he was a rookie wide receiver coming off of a year removed where he didn't play football in 2020. It's no brainer to me. He should be a top 5 pick. He is my 5th overall player. I've debated with this Stafford tendonitis stuff, moving him over Cooper Kupp. I'm not going to, but he is right in that range for me where it's the elite 5. It's Jonathan Taylor, it's Christian McCaffrey, it's Justin Jefferson, it's Cooper Kupp, and it's Jamar Chase. And Jamar Chase, the only hope that I think people have who are picking in, pick 6 to 9 of their draft, because it's not that great of an area to be picking, is that Jamar Chase falls.
I agree, because I mean, after that, we do see that flat tier at running back. We'll talk about a guy that I actually have leading that group soon in this video, but I agree. Get that elite superstar talent wide receiver, capitalize on that flat tier running back in the second round, as we'll get into. But either way, take it away. Your number one biggest value in round one, the guy that we actually share the same value on. Take it away with Davante Adams.
Yeah, Davante Adams, I have him as my 6th overall player. So that means, like, in a draft, if the elite 5 go off the board as the elite 5, I would take Davante Adams 6th overall off the board. You can get him towards the end of the first round. 11 overall is his ADP right now. I've seen him slip into the second round before. The concern that people have for Davante Adams are completely overblown. It's kind of the same thing with Jamar Chase. Number one, the guy's talent is enough to overcome so much. Davante Adams is the best wide receiver in the NFL. So whatever concerns we might have for him, and the two biggest ones that people have is that he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball anymore, and he goes to Derek Carr. Well, Derek Carr is still a good quarterback. He threw nearly 5,000 yards last year with a hobbled Darren Waller, half a season of Henry Ruggs, and Hunter Renfrow to throw to. They play together at Fresno State, so they already have a connection together, Derek Carr and Davante Adams, and we know he's a very accurate quarterback. And, in the past, we had issues with Derek Carr supporting a number one wide receiver. But to be honest, that had more to do with Amari Cooper than it did with Derek Carr, now that we have seen that from multiple stops out of Amari Cooper. So the other major concern that people might have for Davante Adams is the fact that he didn't have any target competition in Green Bay. It was pretty much the Davante Adams show. Every time Aaron Rodgers dropped back, you knew where the ball was going. And here's how target competition works in the NFL. When Derek Carr drops back to pass, he doesn't care who he has to throw to based on people's projections. He throws to who's open. And nobody in the NFL last year in reception perception history since 2014 gets open as well as Davante Adams. As you guys can see on the screen, green across the board. He gets open at an elite rate on every single route that he runs. 98th percentile versus man coverage, 96th percentile versus zone coverage, 99th percentile versus press coverage. This dude beat double coverage last year at a higher rate than anybody else in the NFL, beat single man coverage, 81.0 success rate, and he was doubled 22% of the time last year. So now going to the Raiders with Darren Waller and with Hunter Renfrow, maybe that double coverage takes a little bit of a lax approach to take some attention away from Davante Adams. And the final thing that's working in his favor is the fact that Aaron Rodgers and the Packers were not a pass-heavy offense. He goes to an offense that is going to be more up-tempo, more pass-heavy. The Raiders ranked middle of the pack in pace last year and 9th in pass rate in 2021. And with Josh McDaniels coming over, the Patriots have been a very pass-heavy offense when they had Tom Brady as the quarterback. And the Packers last year were the single slowest paced offense in the NFL. So despite having an elite quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, it's not like he's going from the Bills offense to the Raiders offense, where you also have to worry about pass volume. So yeah, there's some concerns. He's not playing with Aaron Rodgers anymore. Yeah, he has a little bit more target competition, but I think that's going to be counterbalanced by the fact that this dude might see 200 targets this year.
Yeah, no, and I agree. The funny thing that people will cite is, oh, well, he's not the main focal point. So he had a 30+% target share in Green Bay. Like, what do you expect in the Raiders? And I'll counter that where he's still Davante Adams. So no matter what, even if he's not at a 33% target share, he's still going to be in the 27 to 29% range on a team that's going to throw the ball inherently more than what Green Bay did. Derek Carr, as you kind of said, is a top 12 to 14 level quarterback. So it's not like you're falling from Aaron Rodgers to, I don't know, like fucking Tua Tagovailoa
or something.
Trevor Lawrence. You know what I mean? You're not falling there. You're falling still to a not only adequate starting quarterback, but a good one. And as we kind of said, this offense should be around that top 10 type of mark in the league. So if Davante Adams is still his target earning himself, if Davante Adams is still arguably one of the best touchdown scorers in the league, which he's not just going to lose that ability because he's transferring from, green and yellow to silver and black. Like Davante Adams is going to eat. Davante Adams is going to be a stud. And it's so funny because we've talked about him in the past as this locked in top 5, top 6 overall pick in fantasy. This is one of the first years you're going to be able to have a back of the first round pick, like 10th, 11th, 12th overall pick, and get access to Davante Adams. Take that steal. Both of our 6th overall ranked players, 5 pick discrepancy in terms of his ADP. So absolutely love Davante Adams. Honorable mention for this round is going to be Stefon Diggs, our next ranked receiver after Davante Adams. So we have Davante Adams at 6. Stefon Diggs is our 9, currently going off the board as the 12th overall player. And I mean, it's pretty simple. He commands targets. He beats coverage at an elite rate according to reception perception, and he's tethered to the Buffalo Bills offense, which should threaten for the highest pace, highest scoring offense in the entire league. I wouldn't be shocked if the Bills threw it to like 650, 700 times next year. That is the level of ceiling we could see from a passing output standpoint. So with Stefon Diggs, I mean, you could basically lock in 160, 170 targets, and if you're getting that from Josh Allen, you have a pretty good chance of finishing high in fantasy.
Yeah, and speaking to the double coverage argument that I talked about with Davante Adams, the second highest rate of double coverage was to Stefon Diggs last year. And if Gabriel Davis takes a step forward, like everybody is projecting, then it's possible Diggs sees a little bit more of like a positive regression in the big play stuff, because that was really the difference in his 2020 versus his 2021, is that he wasn't getting a ton of big plays. He wasn't as efficient as he was in 2020. So hopefully Diggs can get back to just playing a little bit better in 2021. When you're at this area of the draft, and you're deciding between questionable running backs and a wide receiver tethered to a potential like 50, 60 touchdown ceiling quarterback, like I'm going to take the opportunity that Diggs has, an outlier 15 touchdown season because Josh Allen was the MVP of the NFL. Like he has that in his range of outcomes. And I think people are underrating how high of a ceiling Diggs has, because we saw it in 2020 with Allen only really in his first year of being an elite quarterback.
Yep. No, I absolutely agree. Love Stefon Diggs. He is a clear-cut mid to late first round pick, I would say, is a good spot for him. You get your Stefon Diggs, you wrap around with some of these guys we're going to be talking about in the second round. Speaking of that second round, you guys can see the ADP on the screen. The clear-cut one that doesn't really belong in this range, in my opinion, Saquon Barkley. Current ADP, as you guys see, 22nd overall behind like Nick Chubb, as we'll get into in tomorrow's video, but 22 overall ADP, my rank 7th overall. Yes, he is my RB3 this year. The case to be made is pretty damn simple. Saquon Barkley throughout his career, in his rookie year, we saw 23.9 opportunities per game. In his second year, 22.3 opportunities per game. We know that he missed that 2020 season with the ACL injury, and last year was his first year off the ACL. He battled that ankle injury and was still averaging about 17 opportunities per game despite playing injured. And when we did see him fully healthy, there was about a 3-game stretch we saw him fully healthy between weeks 2 to 4. He commanded 58 opportunities in those 3 games, nearly 20 opportunities per game, and was a near 20 PPR point per game scorer. Now we're getting Barkley, a 25-year-old elite talent, more than a full year removed off of this ACL tear, now entering the best offense he has ever played in under Brian Daboll. We saw, even in that first preseason game, how that offense looked from a schematic standpoint, how they were utilizing Saquon Barkley in the passing game. If Saquon Barkley can go back to being his, 20 opportunity per game self, like 70 to 90 target type of range, I think he's a locked and loaded top 6 overall running back with 22, 24 PPR points per game in his range of outcomes. So getting that in the not only the second round, but in terms of ADP, the back of the second round, thank your league mates if you can pair him with like Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, and I think the telling thing now is we're seeing his underdog ADP start to correct. And remember, underdog is where all the sharp players are playing, all of the high stakes, Liam, who we had on our stream, guys like Justin Herzig, and all these dudes that play high stakes fantasy football. They're drafting this guy 15th overall now. He was around this range on underdog as well. A couple months ago, he was a back of the second round pick. They've become wise to the fact that he's healthy, he's being utilized a little bit better, and they're drafting him higher. The home league ADP has not caught up yet. So if you guys draft soon, I know plenty of you guys have talked about, I have a draft this weekend, or I have a draft, tomorrow or whatever. If you guys draft soon, make sure you take advantage of the fact that Saquon Barkley is not a first round pick, because he absolutely should be. He's ranked in the first round for both of us. He has the ceiling, unlike any other running back not named Christian McCaffrey really in fantasy right now. So he is a phenomenal value. If you didn't pick him, I definitely would have. A guy that I also have ranked a lot higher. He's not as much of a slam dunk, in my opinion, as Saquon Barkley. But Javonte Williams, I have him ranked at 13th overall. He goes 23rd overall in ADP. Now, I'm not drafting Javonte Williams for his median range of outcomes. I think a lot of people think that's what I'm doing, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm arguing that his medium range of outcomes is his floor and the ceiling is what I'm drafting. So we're talking about a guy last year who only had 6 games of over 50% of the snaps his rookie season. So this was a guy that was a part-time player, pretty much in a 55 Gordon, 45 Javonte Williams split. He was the RB22 in points per game last year on that 55-45 split, on the 23rd highest scoring offense in the NFL. And coaches, we know this from past experience playing fantasy football, they don't trust rookie running backs. Even if the coaching staff wants to keep Melvin Gordon involved, which I believe they do to some extent, that number should climb to about a 60-40 Javonte Williams split on the median range of outcomes. Even if he had a small increase like that, his floor is a top 15 running back because he now has Russell Wilson as his quarterback. This offense is going to be a whole lot better than the 23rd ranked offense in the league. Jerry Jeudy was battling injuries all year last year. He's going to be back healthy. I think this offense at minimum is a top 15 scoring offense. But the ceiling comes in where he has that top 15 floor. Like I said, the ceiling comes in if he gets a 65 to 75% opportunity share, like we saw the jump from Jonathan Taylor's rookie season to now. They waited a while to go get Gordon. They were clearly okay letting Melvin Gordon hit free agency, using Javonte Williams as the main guy. And number 2, we also have Melvin Gordon, who's an older running back with a ton of touches under his belt. So even if you get that top 15 running back production of Javonte to start the season, by the end of the season, if Melvin Gordon gets hurt, who, by the way, is already dealing with a foot injury, then we could have league-winning Javonte Williams. So he's got the ability. He secured the pass-catching role down the stretch last year, and we know how much Nathaniel Hackett, who's the new coach there, featured Aaron Jones in the passing game in Green Bay. The offense will be much improved, and the range of outcomes exists where he is a workhorse running back who could finish as the number 1 or top 3, top 5 overall running back in fantasy. And to me, that's worth the swing in round 2.
Yeah, and it's so funny because we'll have a lot of people, they're going to make their projections. They're going to look at the split. Oh, Melvin Gordon's there. We got to ding Javonte Williams. Oh, he was only the RB 26 PPR points per game, 12.1 per game last year. How are we going to take this guy in the second round? Well, we did see down the stretch post the bye week for the Broncos last year. So they did have their bye week in week 11. Post bye week, he jumped from 12.1 overall seasonal PPR points per game to nearly 15 PPR points per game, which would have ranked as the RB15 as a rookie on a 57% snap share. He's currently going off the board, as you kind of said, RB13 overall in ADP. So only really tethering in, baking in Russell Wilson in this improved passing offense, in this improved offense overall, is going to raise him from an RB15 floor to RB13. That doesn't really make sense to me because, as we see usually, typically, year 1 to 2, if you're a talented running back, you see almost a near 9% improvement in your opportunity share from year 1 to 2. And Javonte Williams, I think he's well proven already based on his efficiency metrics last year that he is indeed a talented running back. So you're getting an ascending young player, 22-year-old running back, in what should be not only an improved offense, but could contend with one of the best offenses in the league at the end of the second round. Smash it.
Yeah, exactly. If I can leave my draft with, let's say I have an early pick and I grab a Justin Jefferson or a Cooper Kupp or a Jamar Chase, in the second round, I wrap back around and grab an upside swing at Javonte Williams as my RB1, maybe grab another wide receiver or another running back in round 3. I think that is a great start to a draft. And I've seen people start drafts with like Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, and somehow still get Javonte Williams as their RB2 on that team, and then they're able to build out their wide receiver core. So Javonte Williams, I doubt he's going to go any higher than this. With Barkley, I could see him climbing a little bit depending on your ADP. Could go in the first round. With Javonte Williams, I think consensus-wise, he's going to stay a back of the second round pick for the most part, unless something were to happen to Melvin Gordon before the season starts. So I think you are in a great spot. If you guys pick early in your draft and you can get Javonte with your second pick, it is an awesome, awesome value there. So an honorable mention in this area of the draft is Alvin Kamara, who we both have moved up in recent days because of some news that's come to light. We have him ranked at 10. So we have him in the first round. He's going off the board 19th overall in ADP. His court hearing has been delayed to October for the assault that apparently took place on Pro Bowl weekend. We have reports now from reputable sources like Dov Kleeman and Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport and all these guys that he is more and more unlikely to be suspended for the assault on the Pro Bowl. So we're talking about a guy right now that was a top 5 running back in points per game last year, still has the elite receiving workload that we look for. He led all running backs with a 20.2% target share last year. He ran the most routes in the league, and he was top 5 in yards per route run. He did this all while playing for the 19th ranked scoring offense, 28th ranked in weighted DVOA, and the team got much better around him. And with Michael Thomas back, with Chris Olave and Jarvis Landry added, Jameis Winston back at quarterback, Kamara made his hay early in his career on being efficient and scoring touchdowns. And he had his most inefficient season last year because they were pounding him up the middle, and everybody knew that they were going to run the ball or throw it to Alvin Kamara, and that he was the number one focus of defenses. With Michael Thomas back, with Olave and Jarvis Landry coming in, with Jameis Winston throwing the ball, we have a guy that can open up the offense and actually use Alvin Kamara in his efficient manner. And for those of you who might think, well, Jameis Winston's not really a check down artist like Drew Brees was, on Jameis Winston's 166 pass attempts last year, Alvin Kamara saw 34 targets, which was a 20.4% target share, which would have led the league already over Alvin Kamara's 20.2% target share, which led the league last year. He was averaging 6.2 targets per game, despite the Saints ranking fourth most run-heavy offense in the NFL. So he was averaging over 6 targets a game on an offense that was throwing the ball like 25 times a game. He was the guy in the offense last year. So we got the efficiency going up. We know the receiving workload is going to be there. The only issue that people had was the suspension, and it's looking more and more unlikely from guys that are connected to the league.
Well, we did see, even as you kind of said, in terms of that target share, 20.4% when Jameis Winston was on the field. As long as Jameis Winston was on the field, the Saints offense was downright good last year. I mean, despite not having Michael Thomas, despite not having, the new addition of Chris Olave and Jarvis Landry, we saw this team with Jameis Winston be a 25 plus point per game offense, which fell to 18.9 points per game once Winston got hurt. And in terms of Alvin Kamara's actual fantasy output, in that first stretch when Jameis Winston was on the field, 19.7 PPR points per game and scored 6 of his 9 seasonal touchdowns in that stretch. So no real fall off from the actual player himself. It's just obviously when the quarterback got hurt, the offense suffered, and Alvin Kamara's bottom line did face a hit once Jameis Winston was out. So if Jameis Winston's healthy and, those ancillary playmakers can keep this offense humming and hoeing at the rate that they were showing early portion of last year, I would not only not be shocked if Alvin Kamara was a 20 plus PPR point per game scorer next year. That's the expectancy for me.
Yeah, exactly. I think at minimum, you're getting a guy with Jameis Winston that can be at least what 2020 Drew Brees was, where Brees was clearly over the hill, wasn't necessarily the greatest quarterback that we've seen out of Brees in his career. Jameis Winston can push the ball downfield. He has the weapons to do so. Kamara, the famous 6 touchdown game, that's what Kamara can give you. He's a touchdown scorer, and if the offense is better, he's going to be better from a fantasy perspective as well. So love that for Alvin Kamara. He's a guy that I think if you guys have drafts really soon before the ADP catches up, he's going to be a guy that's a great value. I think people are going to be scared off of him. More casual players are going to let him fall to round 3, maybe late round 2, and I think you can get a great value there. Imagine starting your draft with like Christian McCaffrey, Javonte Williams, and Alvin Kamara, or Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill and Alvin Kamara or something like that. It could be insane what you guys are able to do in some of your home league drafts. So let's move on to round 3 before we get out of here. And you guys can see round 3's ADP on the screen. We have 2 Buccaneers as our guys that we are higher on than ADP. I'll let you take it away with your Buccaneer, and then I'll take it away with mine.
Yeah, and it's funny to me because I've never been a true Leonard Fournette truther, but I have him ranked at 20. He's going at 25, you guys can see. But with Leonard Fournette, I mean, people are going to have that preconceived bias. Oh, he's fat in the offseason. Rachaad White's going to get usage. Leonard Fournette's not going to be the same guy, which, by the way, he's trimmed down from 260 to about 240 in the span of 2 weeks once that report came out. So no real issues on that regard. Just obviously created a area where you could have gotten value on Leonard Fournette. But the peripherals are everything that you'd like. He's got a great situation. Tampa Bay, as long as everybody's healthy, as long as Tom Brady's on the field, you guys are basically locked in to be a top 5 to 6 overall scoring offense. And we saw down the stretch last year, week 4 on, once Leonard Fournette was able to take that featured workhorse role from the hands of Ronald Jones, he was downright dominant. 20.55 opportunities per game week 4 on once he took that role. And we saw in that stretch 6.3 targets per game and a touchdown per game in the stretch, en route to over 21 PPR points per game as the featured workhorse. So if we're getting that at current ADP, round 3, if you can find a guy that can get 21 opportunities per game, get that ample receiving work, get, exposure to the goal line as we saw with Tampa Bay last year, specifically too with Rob Gronkowski not on the field, Mike Evans and Leonard Fournette are basically locks to be the 2 highest value players in the red zone area for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So all of that, you're getting a top 5, top 3 overall potential running back in the third round. Like, I have him ranked straight up over Dalvin Cook, as we'll get into with next video. And Dalvin Cook's a top 8 overall pick. Leonard Fournette is a third round pick. Other than perceived talent level, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly. You got a way higher receiving workload with Leonard Fournette than you're going to get with Dalvin Cook. Again, the only difference is the perceived talent level. And Leonard Fournette posted 4.5 yards a carry, which is the highest of his career last year. He clearly benefited from, even though they've lost a couple pieces, one of the best offensive lines, run blocking and pass blocking in the league. We know it's similar to Stefon Diggs. I know Leonard Fournette's a running back, so he could always get hurt, and he's older and he's got a lot of touches. But for the most part, that's baked into his third round ADP. When he's on the field, he's going to be one of the best running backs in fantasy because he plays for an elite offense. He has an elite receiving workload, and he could score 1, 2, 3 touchdowns a game.
Yeah, no, exactly. So with Leonard Fournette, again, he's going in a range right now where, let's just say let's say Saquon Barkley and Javonte Williams don't fall back to you. You start your draft with Christian McCaffrey. You take, an AJ Brown or one of these other wide receivers in this range. And then you also pair him with Leonard Fournette. Like, you are locked and loaded into a superhero RB, smashing those wide receivers and elite quarterback or elite tight end in the mid rounds. And your league mates have to catch up to that league winning potential you've built up for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And similarly, we have Mike Evans in this range, who I have ranked as like a 1-2 turn pick, who's going in the third round in some home leagues. My rank's 15 of him. He's a top 15 player. He's going off the board at 26. And we know what Evans can bring from a touchdown perspective. He scored 27 in the last 2 years, 14 last year and 13 the year before. He's Tom Brady's guy, especially now that Gronkowski is gone. In the red zone, the ball is going to number 13. Like, that's what's going to happen. If it's not a run play, it's going to number 13. The target potential is also much higher this year because we don't have Antonio Brown on the field, because Gronkowski is gone. Godwin looks like he's making good progress, but honestly, Godwin helps this offense more than he hurts Mike Evans, because efficiency-wise, Evans is much better on when Godwin is on the field. So Evans only has 114 and 109 targets in the two seasons that Tom Brady has been the quarterback. Similar to Stefon Diggs, this is the clear number one for an elite quarterback. He has big play potential. He has upside to score touchdowns on any given week. And there's really nothing to dislike about him. He's a guy who's been doing it for years, too. Since 2014, hasn't had a season without 1,000 yards. Would it shock any of us if Mike Evans has 150-plus targets, 12-plus touchdowns, 1,300 receiving yards, just like he did back in 2016, which was his best fantasy season?
Yeah, no, I agree. The problem that a lot of people have with Mike Evans is, oh, well, his target share is lower. Touchdowns are such a variant, like, you can't predict it. Well, for starters, the 6'5", 230-pound beast on the outside for a top 5 scoring offense. Yeah, you could pretty much lock him into 12, 13, 14 plus touchdowns if Tom Brady is throwing for 40 plus this year. With Mike Evans, I mean, it's just so simple. You're betting on an elite offense, you're betting on a great player, and you're betting on the fact that he, at his worst, is an 18% target share player and is still a top 8 overall wide receiver. What if this year, say Chris Godwin does miss a couple of games, what if he's closer to that 20, 21, 22% range? Like, Mike Evans, if he gets 130, 140 targets based off the efficient type of player he is, there's a range of outcomes where he's a top 3 overall wide receiver this year.
Yeah, and again, similar to what you said with the Bills, like, this offense is going to throw like 700 times. Yep. Like, it's going to be one of the most pass-heavy offenses in the league because that's just what they do. Even though Bruce Arians is gone, it's still Byron Leftwich calling the offense, and he's still going to call a ton of pass plays. This is like the highest neutral pace run pass rate offense in the league. So definitely a lot to like about Mike Evans. I can't believe he's not a consensus like 1-2 turn pick just based on what his outlook is. So a couple honorable mentions before we get out of here. I have AJ Brown. I've talked about him like so many times, so I don't need to go too in depth here. I have him ranked at 18. He's going off the board at 28, and it's similar to the Davante Adams case for me. I know AJ Brown's an elite wide receiver, and that's really all that I need to know. There's concerns with him that people have, but he commands targets at an elite level, 9th in the NFL each of the last 2 years, 25.9 and 27% target shares respectively. He was top 5 in yards per route run last year despite playing through injuries. His success rate versus man and press was top 5 in the NFL as well. He goes from one run-heavy offense, in probably the most run-heavy offense in the Tennessee Titans, to another run-heavy offense, at least perceived to be run-heavy. If the Eagles are not run-heavy, which they weren't from weeks 1 to 7 last year, they tried to be a pass-heavy offense, then you're going to get an A.J. Brown discount by a lot of casual players thinking that he's going to be in a run-heavy offense when, number one, like I said, he already played in a run-heavy offense, and number two, they might not be run-heavy. Everything that they've done this offseason signals that they want to be more pass-heavy. They have Jalen Hurts, second year as a full starter. They have second year in Nick Sirianni's system. They had A.J. Brown brought in. They extended him to a big contract. They extended Dallas Goedert as well. It's really easy for me to see the bull case with A.J. Brown. He probably doesn't have 160, 170 target upside like Davante Adams or Stefon Diggs might have, but what he can do is be very efficient. He's produced wide receiver 1 numbers on 106 targets in 2020. If he has 130, 140 targets this year, I have no doubt in my mind he's going to be a wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple. Bet on elite talents on situations that present uncertainty or ambiguity. Because as much as people want to think they know what the Eagles are doing, I mean, we saw a tale of two seasons last year. You mentioned in those first 7 weeks, they showed that they want to throw the ball, but they didn't have the weapons. They didn't have the adequate, play. We'll say Jalen Hurts. We'll say that weaponry. We'll say the overall package of offense didn't really suit what they wanted to do from a throwing perspective. So they geared themselves to a more run-heavy team for their offensive success down the stretch. With AJ Brown in this offense, let's think common sense wise. Having a top 5-ish type of level receiver at his peak in an offense is automatically going to increase the validity of your passing game. And if that's going to be happening, if AJ Brown, maybe he's not a 150, 160 target player. If AJ Brown's able to go out there and command 120, 130 targets, given his style play, given the yards after catch that he gives, given his yards per route run, he should easily threaten as a top 5 wide receiver. So the fact that you're getting that, as you kind of said, in the mid-3rd round, currently on ADP, 28th overall, like, I hate to keep using, you start Christian McCaffrey, you do this, you do that, but like, it just makes no sense how you could start your draft right now. Like Christian McCaffrey, one of those anchor other running backs, so you can start superhero RB and then still have AJ Brown as a fallback for your wide receiver 1. That is a pretty damn good start.
Yeah, if you could, I've started some best ball drafts with Christian McCaffrey, Javonte Williams, and AJ Brown. I just wanted to phone it in after that.
Yeah.
Like that's just a phenomenal start. You have another guy as your honorable mention. We've kind of already touched on his offense and his situation already, but T. Higgins, you have him at 23 right now in your rankings. He's about a 2-3 turn pick for me as well, and his ADP is about the mid to late 3rd round.
Yeah, so I mean, he was a near 16 PPR point per game scorer last year. He is tethered, as I kind of said with Jamar Chase, to a top 10 level offense and a top 10 level quarterback with Joe Burrow. And you're betting on a 23-year-old ascending talent, building off of what was already a top 12 point per game season last year. A lot of people are going to point to, too many mouths to feed. How are they going to sustain both Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Mixon in this offense? Well, for starters, that is not how offenses work. Target concentration is a thing. If you are one of the top 2 talents at your position on an offense that is expected to put up points, is expected to throw the ball, as I kind of said with the Bengals, there's no, who's the 1, who's the 2. We saw with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. We saw with other offenses down the stretch in the last 2 years. If the offense fits it, 2 wide receivers can absolutely dominate in a similar situation, as I kind of said, Evans and Godwin. I think that's the new age. Jamar Chase fitting that Mike Evans role and T. Higgins fitting that Chris Godwin role, in the sense that both of them are going to be absolute studs. Doesn't really matter who's perceived as the 1 if they're both giving you fantasy points at the end of the day.
Right. If the Bengals throw 600 times and Chase has 150 targets and Higgins has 135 targets, then that's a 25% and a 23.5, 24% target share. That's plenty of room left over for, Tyler Boyd and Hayden Hurst and players that don't, sniff the jock strap of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So it's really easy to envision the world in which these guys dominate the targets. And this offense, I said 600 times, they might unlock the offense for Joe Burrow. They might let him throw 650 times this year. And if the offense is that pass heavy, it's very easy to see T. Higgins and Jamar Chase both hitting 150 plus targets this year.
Yep. No, absolutely agree. But either way, I appreciate you guys for making it through these first 3 rounds. As Corey kind of said at the start of the video, biggest fades in the first 3 rounds coming to you tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. Redraft season, we got to get you guys ready for your drafts. A lot of your home leagues, a lot of your work leagues are going to be starting within the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned. Subscribe to the Fantasy Stock Exchange YouTube channel for all the good tidbits to get you ready for those drafts. But with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed and enjoy the week.